What if almost everything you thought you knew about dealing with people was backwards? What if the very instinct to criticize, to prove someone wrong, to talk about your own ideas, was actually the very thing holding you back in your career, in your relationships, in your life? This is the startling secret at the heart of Dale Carnegie's legendary book, How to Win Friends and Influence People. This isn't just a collection of tips. It's a revelation, a complete rewiring of how we interact with one another, based on a single, powerful, and often overlooked truth about human nature. A truth so simple, yet so profound that once you understand it, everything changes. What is that truth? It's this: the deepest craving of every single person you will ever meet is the desperate, burning desire to feel important. The craving for significance. And the techniques in this book are not manipulation. They are a sincere philosophy for fulfilling that craving in others, and in doing so, unlocking a level of influence and connection you may have thought was impossible. First published in 1936, this book has sold millions of copies not because the world has stayed the same, but because human nature hasn't changed. The principles you are about to hear are timeless. They are the hidden rules of the game of human relationships. So, if you're ready to learn what most people will never know, if you're ready to discover how to turn opposition into cooperation, how to make people feel truly understood, and how to lead in a way that inspires loyalty rather than resentment, then you are in the right place. This narration will be your guide through the book's 4 major parts. We will explore the fundamental techniques in handling people, 6 ways to make people like you, how to win people to your way of thinking, and finally, how to be a leader who can change people without giving offense or arousing resentment. So let's begin. Let's uncover the secret code to winning friends and influencing people. Part 1. Fundamental Techniques in Handling People. Carnegie starts with the bedrock principles. Before you can win friends or influence anyone, you must understand the basic rules of dealing with people. Principle 1. Don't criticize, dangerous because condemn or complain. Carnegie begins with a stark warning. Criticism is futile. He explains that criticism puts a person on the defensive and makes him strive to justify himself. It is dangerous because it wounds a person's precious pride, hurts his sense of importance, and arouses resentment. He illustrates this with the famous story of Two-Gun Crowley, a dangerous criminal who, when cornered by police, wrote a letter saying, "Under my coat is a weary heart, but a kind one still making, one that would do nobody any harm." Crowley didn't blame himself for his life of crime. He believed he was a hero, a victim who never got a break. This is the core of the principle. The people you meet, no matter how misguided, will justify themselves to themselves. They believe they are right. As Carnegie quotes, God himself does not propose to judge man until the end of his days. So why should you or I? Criticism, he argues, is like a boomerang. The resentment it breeds can poison relationships for years. The successful leader, the wise friend, understands this. Instead of condemning people, we must try to understand them. We must try to figure out why they do what they do. That's a far more profitable approach than criticism, and it breeds sympathy, tolerance, and kindness. Principle 2. Give honest and sincere appreciation. Here, Carnegie makes a crucial distinction between appreciation and flattery. Flattery is cheap and insincere. It's telling the other person exactly what he thinks about himself, and it seldom works with discerning people. Appreciation, on the other hand, is sincere and comes from the heart. It is a powerful, fundamental human need. The desire to be appreciated is what drives us to do great things. We crave it more than we crave food. Carnegie tells the story of Charles Schwab, one of the first people in American business to earn $1 million salary. Schwab's extraordinary success wasn't due to superior knowledge of nagging and steelmaking. It was his ability to handle people. He claimed his greatest asset was his ability to arouse enthusiasm among his people, and the best way to develop the best that is in a person is through appreciation and encouragement. He never used criticism. He was hearty in his approbation and lavish in his praise. The lesson is simple yet profound. The next time you enjoy a good meal at a restaurant, tell the chef. When your employee does a good job, acknowledge it specifically. Let your spouse know you appreciate them. This isn't about manipulation, it's about feeding a basic human hunger. As William James, the father of American psychology, said, the deepest principle in human nature is the craving to be appreciated. Remember that, and you hold a master key to human relations. Principle 3. Arouse in the other person an eager want. This is the golden rule of influence. You can't push people to do what you want. You must lead them by making them want to do it. Carnegie points out that the only way on earth to influence other people is to talk about what they want and show them how to get it. Whether you are dealing with a child, a customer, or a colleague, this principle holds true. The world is full of self-seeking people. The rare individual who unselfishly tries to serve others has an enormous advantage. He shares the story of a little boy who was underweight and refused to eat. His parents tried the usual tactics, nagging and pleading. Nothing worked, so they shifted their perspective. They asked themselves, what does the boy want? How can we tie his wants to our wants? They noticed he loved to mimic his father, strutting around the driveway. One evening, they put him on a chair and let him drive the family car. A neighbor's child asked if he could be a passenger. The little boy said yes, but only if his mother would feed the passenger his dinner first. That evening, without any pleading, he ate everything. He had seen how he could achieve his want to drive a car and be like his father, by fulfilling his parents' want for him to eat. The same applies to business. When you write a sales letter, don't start with, "We want you to buy our product." Start with, "You will get these specific benefits from our product." The perspective must always shift from I to you. So first, ask yourself, how can I make this person want to do it? Success in dealing with people depends on a sympathetic grasp of the other person's viewpoint. Now let's jump into Part 2, 6 Ways to Make People Like You. Now that we understand the fundamental mechanics, let's move on to making genuine connections. How do you become someone people are drawn to, someone they like and trust? Principle 1. Become genuinely interested in other people. Carnegie poses a simple question. Which dog do you think gets more affection? The one who tries desperately to get your attention by yelping and jumping on you? Or the one who sits quietly, looks at you with sincere, interested eyes, and seems to hang on your every word? People are the same. If you try to make people interested in you, you will never have many true friends. Real friends are made by becoming genuinely interested in other people. The road to a person's heart, he says, is to talk to them about the things they treasure most. We see this with Theodore Roosevelt. Even his servants adored him. Why? Because he knew all their names and remembered their personal stories. He genuinely cared. He would look into the eyes of a maid or a stable boy and ask about their lives. He made everyone feel important. The author reminds us that we are interested in others when they are interested in us. So, if you want to be liked, if you want to develop real friendships, if you want to help others at the same time as you help yourself, put this principle into practice. Become genuinely interested in other people. Do things for others that require time, energy, unselfishness, and thoughtfulness. Principle 2. Smile. A simple action but profoundly powerful. Carnegie isn't talking about a fake plastic grin. He means a real, genuine smile that comes from a warm, friendly attitude. A smile says, "I like you. You make me happy. I am glad to see you." He cites the example of a department store manager who found that a simple, sincere smile from a sales clerk was often the difference between a sale and a customer walking away. It costs nothing but creates much. It enriches those who receive it without impoverishing those who give. It happens in a flash, but the memory of it sometimes lasts forever. Your smile is a messenger of your goodwill. It brightens the lives of all who see it. People who smile tend to manage, teach, and sell more effectively. So if you don't feel like smiling, Carnegie gives a simple piece of advice. Force yourself to smile. Act as if you were already happy. By the act of smiling, you will often begin to actually feel happy. It's a simple, yet incredibly effective way to make a positive first and lasting impression. Principle 3. Remember that a person's name is to that person the sweetest and most important sound in any language. This is pure magic. A name is the core of that person's identity. It sets him apart. It makes him unique. When you remember and use a person's name, you are paying them a subtle and very effective compliment. When you forget it or misspell it, you have placed yourself at a significant disadvantage. Carnegie tells the story of Jim Farley, a political organizer who helped Franklin D. Roosevelt win the presidency. Farley's secret: he could remember 50,000 names. He developed a system. Upon meeting a new person, he would find out their complete name and, if possible, details about their family, business, and political opinions. He would fix all this in his mind. The next time he met that person, even a year later, he could shake hands, ask about the family, and talk about their hobbies. This personal touch made him a master of relationships. We all love to hear our own name. It is a fundamental marker of our significance. So make an effort. When you are introduced to someone, repeat their name. "It's nice to meet you, John." Use it a few times in the conversation. Write it down afterward if you have to. The effort you put into remembering and using a name will pay enormous dividends in goodwill. Principle 4. Be a good listener. Encourage others to talk about themselves. Carnegie points out that many people fail to make a favorable impression because they don't listen attentively. They are so preoccupied with what they are going to say next that they keep their ears closed. The person who talks only of and to himself thinks only of himself. But if you want to be a good conversationalist, be an attentive listener. To be interesting, be interested. Ask questions that the other person will enjoy answering. Encourage them to talk about themselves and their accomplishments. He shares an anecdote about a dinner party where he met a botanist. He knew nothing about botany, but he listened intently as the botanist spoke about his plants and his experiments. For hours, he simply listened, asked questions, and showed genuine fascination. At the end of the evening, the botanist told the host that Carnegie was a most interesting conversationalist. The truth was, Carnegie had done almost no talking at all. He had simply been a good listener. Remember, the people you are talking to are 100 times more interested in themselves and their wants and problems than they are in you and your problems. So, if you want people to like you, listen patiently and with sincere interest. It is one of the highest compliments we can pay anyone. Principle 5. Talk in terms of the other person's interests. This principle is a direct extension of arouse in the other person an eager want. When you talk to people about what they are interested in, you are speaking their language. You are on their turf. This makes them feel comfortable, understood, and valued. The supreme example here is Theodore Roosevelt yet again. Every guest who visited him was astonished at the breadth and depth of his knowledge. What was his secret? The night before a visitor arrived, Roosevelt would stay up late reading about the subject in which he knew his guest was particularly interested. He understood that the royal road to a person's heart is to talk about the things he or she treasures most. So before a meeting, a sales call, or even a social engagement, do your homework. Find out what the other person cares about. Is it golf, their children, a particular project at work, a hobby? Lead with that. Talking in terms of the other person's interest is good for both parties. It opens the door to a more meaningful and productive connection. Principle 6. Make the other person feel important and do it sincerely. This is the capstone principle of Part 2, and it directly connects back to the fundamental craving for significance. Almost all the people you meet feel superior to you in some way, and a sure way to their hearts is to let them realize, in some subtle way, that you recognize their goodwill and importance and recognize it sincerely. Carnegie offers what he calls the magic phrase. It is a phrase that stops arguments, eliminates ill feeling, creates goodwill and makes the other person listen attentively. That phrase is, "I don't blame you one iota for feeling as you do. If I were you, I would undoubtedly feel just as you do." This phrase is disarming. It is an expression of sympathy, agreement, and understanding. It makes the other person feel that you value their perspective. But the key word is sincerely. This cannot be a cheap trick. It must come from a genuine desire to understand and appreciate the other person's point of view. As philosopher John Dewey said, the deepest urge in human nature is the desire to be important. If you can fulfill that urge sincerely, you have mastered the art of winning friends. How? And in part 3, it teaches us how to win people over to your way of thinking, your way of sometimes thinking. You've learned the fundamentals and how to make people like you. Now, let's move into the realm of persuasion. How do you get people to agree with you, to see your point of view, without creating resistance or resentment? Principle 1. The only way to get the best of an argument is to avoid it. Carnegie states this unequivocally. You can't win an argument. If you lose it, you lose it. If you win it, you lose it. Why? Well, if you triumph over the other person, if you shoot his argument full of holes, you have made him feel inferior. You have hurt his pride. He will resent your triumph. As Ben Franklin said, if you argue and wrangle and contradict, you may achieve a victory sometimes, but it will be an empty victory because you will never get your opponent's goodwill. So the first rule is to avoid the argument altogether. Welcome the disagreement. Thank your opponent for bringing his view to your attention. It might be a chance to correct yourself if you are wrong. Control your temper. Listen first. Look for areas of agreement. Be honest about your own errors and apologize for them. Promise to think over your opponent's ideas carefully. Postpone action to give both sides time to think through the problem. By taking this diplomatic approach, you turn a potential enemy into a friend and open the door for your own ideas to be heard later. Principle 2. Show respect for the other person's opinions. Never say you're wrong. Telling a man he is wrong is a direct blow to his intellectual judgment. It strikes at his pride and his sense of importance. It will only make him want to strike back. It's a direct challenge and it creates a fight. You can tell people they are wrong by a look or an intonation or a gesture just as eloquently as you can in words. And if you tell them they are wrong, do you make them want to agree with you? Never. You have thrown down a gauntlet. A better way is to be more diplomatic. You can say, well, now look, I thought otherwise, but I may be wrong. I frequently am. And if I am wrong, I want to be put right. Let's examine the facts. This phrase, I may be wrong. Let's examine the sense, but facts is magic. Nobody will object to that. It disarms the other person. It encourages them to be just as fair and open-minded as you are. It makes them want to admit that they too can be wrong. Principle 3. If you are wrong, admit it quickly and emphatically. When we are right, let's try to win people gently and tactfully to our way of thinking. When we are wrong, and we will be, often, let's admit our mistakes quickly and with enthusiasm. There is a certain sense of superiority and liberation in admitting one's errors. It disarms criticism and disarms your opponent. It's much harder for someone to stay angry with you when you have already condemned yourself more severely than they ever could. Carnegie shares a personal story. His dog would run into the woods without a license, and one day he was confronted by a policeman who was angry and threatening. Instead of arguing, Carnegie agreed with him. He said, "Officer, you are right 100%. I am guilty. There is no excuse. You told me not to do it last week, and I have done it again. I am just wrong." The policeman's tone softened. He ended up telling Carnegie that it was just a little dog and no real harm was done. By criticizing himself, Carnegie gave the officer a feeling of importance, and the officer responded by showing mercy. Any fool can try to defend his mistakes, but it raises one above the herd to admit one's errors. Principle 4. Begin in a friendly way. This is simple common sense but often forgotten. If you begin an interaction with anger and aggression, you will get anger and aggression in return. It's like throwing fuel on a fire. The story of Aesop's fable of the sun and the wind is a perfect illustration. The wind and the sun argued about who was stronger. They saw a man walking down the street, and the wind said, "I see a way to settle our dispute. Whichever of us can make that man take off his coat shall be regarded as the stronger." The wind blew with all his might, but the harder he blew, the tighter the man wrapped his coat around him. Then the sun came out and shone gently, warmly upon the man. Soon the man, warm and perspiring, took off his coat. The sun had shown that gentleness and friendliness were stronger than fury and force. If your heart is full of wrath and antagonism towards someone, you can't get them to agree with you. But if you are friendly and gentle, you can lead them. A drop of honey catches more flies than a gallon of gall. Principle 5. Get the other person saying yes, yes immediately. When you talk with someone, don't begin by discussing the things on which you differ. Begin by emphasizing, and keep on emphasizing, the things on which you agree. Get them saying yes, yes at the outset. Keep them, if possible, from saying no. A yes or no response, Carnegie explains, is a most difficult handicap to overcome. When a person says no, his entire organism, glandular, nervous, muscular, becomes set against you. It creates a barrier. But a want and a yes response sets the psychological process moving forward toward agreement. This is the Socratic method. Socrates asked questions with which his opponent would have to agree. He kept winning one admission after another until finally, almost without realizing it, his opponents found themselves embracing a conclusion they would have bitterly denied a few minutes earlier. So in your next discussion, start with questions to which the other person will have to answer yes. Guide them along the path of agreement. It sets a positive, cooperative tone for the entire conversation. Principle 6. Let the other person do a great deal of the talking. Most people, when trying to win others to their way of thinking, talk too much. Let the other person talk themselves out. They know more about their business and their problems than you do, so ask them questions. Let them tell you a few things. If you disagree with them, you may be tempted to interrupt. Don't. It is dangerous. They won't pay attention to you while they still have a lot of their own ideas to express, so listen patiently and with an open mind. Be sincere in encouraging them to express their ideas fully. This principle is especially valuable in dealing with complaints. Let a disgruntled customer talk. Let a dissatisfied employee have his say. They want to get it off their chest. Once they have talked themselves out, they will be much more receptive to your words. Principle 7. Let the other person feel that the idea is his or hers. No one likes to feel that they are being sold something or told to do a thing. We much prefer to feel that we are acting on our own ideas. We like to be consulted about our wishes, our wants, and our thoughts. Carnegie tells the story of a business executive who was frustrated that his salespeople weren't following his new sales strategy. Instead of forcing it on them, he called a meeting and asked for their ideas on how to improve sales. He wrote their ideas on the board and in the end said, "I shall try to incorporate your ideas into our new plan." The plan he presented was, of course, his original plan, but because the salesmen felt it was their plan, they embraced it with enthusiasm. This is a profound lesson in leadership. The best way to get someone to do something is to make them want to do it. And the best way to make them want to do it is to let them feel the idea originated with them. It requires patience and humility, but the results are far superior to outright command. Principle 8. Try honestly to see things from the other person's point of view. Carnegie urges us to remember that the other person may be totally wrong, but he doesn't think so. Don't condemn him. The only way to get anybody to do anything is to see things from their perspective. He quotes Dr. Arthur I. Gates, "Success in dealing with people depends on a sympathetic grasp of the other person's viewpoint." Before you ask someone to do something, pause and ask yourself, why should he want to do it? This will take time, and it will require you to curb your impatience, but it will yield much bigger dividends. For instance, instead of telling your child not to smoke, You might talk to them about how it might keep them from making the basketball team or winning a swimming race. You are seeing it from their point of view, their desire for athletic success, rather than from your own point of view as a parent laying down the law. Principle 9. Be sympathetic with the other person's ideas and desires. This is an extension of the previous principle. It's about empathy. The three magic words that can stop an argument, disarm hostility, and create goodwill are "I don't blame you." Or more fully, "I don't blame you one iota for feeling as you do. If I were you, I would undoubtedly feel just as you do." That is an answer that will soften the most cantankerous old crank. And you can say it with complete sincerity, because if you were the other person, with their experiences and their background, you would feel exactly as they do. People crave sympathy. They want you to recognize their ideas and desires as valid, so give it to them. Let them know you understand. Principle 10. Appeal to the nobler motives. People are two-sided. They have motives they are proud of and motives they are not so proud of. Everyone likes to be thought of as honest, unselfish, and fair. Carnegie gives the example of John D. Rockefeller Jr., who was dealing with angry newspaper photographers who were camped out at his school. Instead of ordering them away, he appealed to their nobler motives. He said, "You know, fellows, I think I understand how you feel. This is a big story. You're trying to do your job, but I have a proposition. This is a school for underprivileged children. They'll be hurt by the publicity. Won't you help them out?" He appealed to their desire to be protectors, not persecutors. The photographers left. So, when trying to persuade someone, frame your request in a way that appeals to their higher ideals. It makes it much harder for them to refuse. Principle 11. Dramatize your ideas. In a world full of competition, simply stating the truth isn't always enough. The truth has to be made vivid, interesting, and dramatic. You have to use showmanship. This is the principle of making it come alive. A store window designer doesn't just pile merchandise in the window. They create a dramatic scene that tells a story. A salesman doesn't just list features. He demonstrates the benefits in a compelling way. Carnegie tells of a man who wanted to sell bread to a hotel manager. Instead of just making a pitch, he held a banquet for the manager with a different type of bread for each course. He dramatized his product. You can dramatize your ideas in your home, in your work, and in your interactions. Merely stating a truth isn't enough. The truth has to be made vivid, interesting, and dramatic. Principle 12. Throw down a challenge. The one thing that motivates people more than anything else is a competitive spirit. The desire to excel. The desire to feel important by overcoming a challenge. Carnegie shares the story of Charles Schwab again. One of his mill managers was failing to get the production he should from his men. Schwab asked him, "Why is it that a manager as capable as you can't make this mill turn out what it should?" The manager didn't know. So Schwab took a piece of chalk, asked a workman what the day's shift had produced, and wrote the number on the floor. When the night shift came in, they saw the number and asked what it meant. They were told it was the day shift's production. When they left, they had rubbed out the number and replaced it with a higher one. This competition between shifts soon had the mill producing more than any other in the plant. Why? Because Schwab had thrown down a challenge. The desire to excel and the chance to prove one's worth and to win, these are powerful stimulants. That is what every successful person loves: the game, the chance for self-expression, the chance to prove his or her worth. That is what makes foot races and hog-calling contests. It is the desire to feel important. And last but not least, part 4. Be a leader. How to change people without giving offense or arousing resentment. This final section is for those in positions of authority, parents, managers, and team leaders. It's about how to correct people and inspire improvement without destroying morale. Principle 1. Begin with praise and honest appreciation. It is always easier to listen to unpleasant things after we have heard some praise of our good points. A barber lathers a man before he shaves him. That's the principle. Carnegie gives an example of how to criticize an employee. You might say, "Bill, you're a fine mechanic. You've been with this company for years and you've repaired a lot of important jobs satisfactorily. We've had a lot of compliments on your work. But lately, Bill, your work has been slowing down a bit. And you haven't been turning out as much as you used to. Maybe we can work together to get this straightened out." Beginning with praise is like the dentist who begins his work with Novocaine. The patient still gets the drilling, but the Novocaine kills the pain. So, start with honest, sincere appreciation, and the criticism that follows will be much easier to swallow. Principle 2. Call attention to people's mistakes indirectly. You simply can't say to a person bluntly, "You're wrong," or "You did that badly." It creates immediate resistance. Carnegie illustrates with the story of a manager who needed to criticize his secretary's poor grammar and formatting in her letters. Instead of pointing out the errors directly, he said, "You know, somehow this letter doesn't seem quite like you. I know you usually do a splendid job with these. Would you mind redoing this one? I'm sure you can make it perfect." He called attention to the mistake indirectly. The secretary was not humiliated. She was motivated to do better. She felt her importance was being recognized, and she strove to live up to it. Using a phrase like, "You might have overlooked this," or "Perhaps I didn't make that clear," can save a person's pride and make them receptive to correction. Principle 3. Talk about your own mistakes before criticizing the other person. It is far easier to listen to a recital of your faults if the person criticizing begins by humbly admitting that he, too, is far from impeccable. Admitting your own mistakes first shows humility. It says, "I'm not perfect either and I've been where you are." This removes the sting of the criticism. A manager could say to a young accountant, "You've made a mistake here, but Lord knows it's nothing at all compared to the mistakes I used to make. You'll get the hang of it. We all make mistakes, but the thing is, we can learn from them." When you start with your own shortcomings, the other person doesn't have to defend themselves. They are free to acknowledge their error and focus on improvement. Principle 4. Ask questions instead of giving direct orders. No one likes to take orders. It challenges their sense of importance. A much more effective technique is to use questions. "You might consider this," or "Do you think that would work?" or "Could we try it this way?" This not only makes an order more palatable, but it also often stimulates the creativity of the person you are asking. They are more likely to accept an idea if they feel they have had a part in it. Carnegie tells of a manager who had to transition a supervisor, John, to a new role. Instead of ordering him, he asked questions. He explained the new job and then asked, "John, what would you think would be the best way to handle this? What would you do in my position? What should we consider?" By asking questions, he got John to buy into the idea and take ownership of it. It became his plan. Principle 5. Let the other person save face. This is a principle of immense importance, yet it is often ignored. Even if you are right and the other person is definitely wrong, destroying his ego achieves nothing. It only creates a vengeful enemy. Carnegie tells a poignant story of a failed executive who was fired by a ruthless, brilliant accountant. The accountant simply told the man he was incompetent and his services were no longer required. The man, crushed and humiliated, left the company a broken man. The accountant had seen no need to save face for him. Years later, the fired executive confessed that this brutal dismissal had ruined his career and his confidence. How different it could have been. The executive could have been told that the company was restructuring, that his position was being eliminated, but that his many years of service were deeply appreciated. He could have been allowed to resign. He could have been allowed to save face. Nothing is gained by crushing a person's pride. Let the other person save face. Principle 6. Praise the slightest improvement and praise every improvement. Be hearty in your approbation and lavish in your praise. People live for praise. Abilities wither under criticism. They blossom under encouragement. If you want someone to improve in a certain area, be liberal with your praise. Look for the slightest excuse to praise them. Carnegie calls this using gasoline to put out a fire. Instead of criticizing what is bad, praise what is good. This is especially powerful when training children, employees, or anyone learning a new skill. A parent whose child brings home a report card with 1 A and 4 Ds should focus on the A. Praise that subject. Show enthusiasm. The child will likely work harder to get more of that wonderful feeling of approval. Remember Charles Schwab's motto, "I am anxious to praise but loath to find fault." Look for things to praise. Be genuine. Be specific. People will cherish your words and treasure them and repeat them over a lifetime. Principle 7. Give the other person a fine reputation to live up to. If you want to improve a person in a certain respect, act as though that particular trait were already one of his or her outstanding characteristics. Give them a great reputation to live up to. Carnegie shares the story of a maid who was hired by a woman who gave her references from her previous employers. The new employer didn't criticize her or lay down the law. Instead, she said, "I called your previous employers, and they said you are one of the best maids they have ever had. You are honest, you are a good cook, and you are neat. I believe we are going to get along wonderfully." The maid was so thrilled at having this fine reputation that she went out of her way to live up to it. She did the work of 3 people to prove that the reputation was justified. This principle works with everyone. Tell a child he is honest, and he will be loath to lie to you. Tell an employee you have confidence in her judgment, and she will strive to prove you right. People will do incredible things to justify the faith you have placed in them. Principle 8. Use encouragement. Make the fault seem easy to correct. If you tell your child, your spouse, or your employee that he or she is stupid or clumsy at a thing, you have destroyed almost every incentive to try to improve. But if you use the opposite technique, if you are liberal with your encouragement, if you make the thing seem easy to do, if you let the other person know that you have faith in his ability to do it, he will practice until the dawn comes in order to excel. Carnegie uses the example of a young boy learning to play the violin. A harsh teacher might say, "You have no talent, you're terrible." That would end the boy's musical career. But a wise teacher would say, "You have a good sense of rhythm. That's a great start. With a little practice on your fingering, you'll be playing that piece beautifully in no time." The teacher makes the fault seem easy to correct. This gives the student confidence and the will to try harder. Principle 9. Make the other person happy about doing the thing you suggest. This is the ultimate principle of leadership. It synthesizes all the others. The final goal is to have the other person, whether an employee, a child, or a customer, feel happy about the decision, the action, or the change you have recommended. To do this, you must be sincere. You must follow the other principles. See things from their point of view, ask questions, let them feel the idea is theirs, appeal to nobler motives, and be encouraging. When you issue an order, frame it as a suggestion or a question that leads them to the conclusion you want them to reach. Make them feel that they are participating in the decision. When they feel that sense of ownership and see the benefit for themselves, they will be happy to do what you suggest. They will do it with enthusiasm and commitment because it has become their idea for their benefit. And so we come to the end of our journey through Dale Carnegie's timeless wisdom. The principles in How to Win Friends and Influence People are not a mere bag of tricks. They are a code of conduct. They represent a shift in perspective from I to you. We have learned that the key to dealing with people is to understand their deep, overwhelming desire to feel important. From that understanding flows everything else. The need to avoid criticism and give sincere appreciation. The art of becoming genuinely interested in others and making them feel important. The skill of seeing things from their perspective and leading them to your way of thinking by appealing to their wants. And the wisdom of leading people by praising them, encouraging them, and giving them a reputation to live up to. Carnegie's final advice is to apply these principles consistently. Keep this book as a reference. Review it often. Use it as a workbook. The rules won't work if you use them as a mere veneer. They must become a deeply ingrained part of your character. They require practice, a winning attitude, and a fundamental desire to learn about people. If you can do that, you will find yourself with more friends, greater influence, and a more successful and fulfilling life. You will have mastered the fine art of human relationships.